Welcome back, guys. I hope you're negotiating this strange new online world effectively. If you're not, make sure you send me an email. Research shows that the attrition rate in online courses tends to be different than in a face-to-face classroom. So I really want to make sure that we maintain that connection, we're communicating, and that I'm doing everything I can to support your needs. My goal for this course hasn't changed. I want everybody who's still here to continue to be here and succeed in this class. So if you're having trouble, if you need to reach out, please do so. Email me and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so I asked you guys to read this short chapter on argumentative writing. And again, like before, I'm not going to spend time reading it to you. You guys know how to read. I just want to point out a couple things as I go through this one to illustrate some of the important concepts of this class, or this assignment. I know you're sick of hearing me say this, but I'm going to do so again because I really want to hammer home this point. You need to succeed on this paper. You need to get a C- or above. I know that's a low bar, and I'm not worried about any of you, but please do not blow off this assignment. All right. All right, so we had two essays in this, two example essays. One was about fast food. I hoped you read it. Just by habit, I'm scanning here and I'm asking myself, how would I grade this introduction? And the answer is, it's not a question as the first statement, but I'd probably give him or her, I think it was a her, yeah, I'd give Vanessa credit for asking a question. She also does kind of the broad to narrow thing. She starts with fast food and then narrows it down to her topic, which is, should we have warning labels on fast food? Okay, so she's got a really clear thesis statement here. While this practice might educate people on the dangers of fast food, the cost would be unfair and it would not guarantee a healthier society. I do have kind of a problem with this thesis in that it's almost more of a forecasting statement than a thesis. The thesis itself is implied. We should not put warning labels on fast food. She never says this, but she kind of implies it. But what I want to look at really is the way her forecasting statement and her body paragraphs are set out. For me, you have to write 6 body paragraphs: an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, a counter-argument, and a conclusion. All right. She does not do that. She has an introduction, a counter-argument, 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Okay. Now, what I do like about her thesis is that she forecasts all of that in her thesis. All right. While this practice might educate people on the dangers of fast food, right? So this is the pro. The cost would be unfair, and it would not guarantee a healthier society. These are the cons. All right. So these 2 reasons are the reasons why she's not supporting labels in fast food. Okay. All right. So keep that in mind. Her thesis, essentially, even though it's not explicitly stated like it should be, is that we should not put labels on fast food. All right. With that in mind, when you read this topic sentence, you think to yourself, wait a minute, what is she doing? All right. Putting warning labels on packaging would probably educate more people to the dangers associated with fast food. Okay. You're thinking, wait, that refutes your argument, right? That goes against your argument. All right. And what she's doing is she's conceding a point. I talked about this in the video I recorded about counter-arguing. She's giving up a point to her opposition. She's saying, you know, one good thing that might come out of this is more education. All right. This is perfectly fine as a counter-argument strategy. Now, I did say if you're going to do this early. All right. Because it leaves you room then to refute this. All right. And then you want some sort of transition that shows that this does not support your thesis. All right. So look at this next topic sentence. Despite the one potential positive, forcing companies to print warnings on packages would unfairly raise the cost of production. Okay. So now with this topic sentence, especially with this transition, she's showing that she's refuting this point. All right. This is true. However, I'm going to raise 2 points that I think are stronger. Okay. So this is a good example, and I encourage you to go back and look at it again if you haven't really studied it, of a counter-argument. She's conceding a point, and then she's revealing her two other points. Now again, for me, she's got 2 body paragraphs, you need 3, okay? That's most of what I want to say about this essay, okay? Finally, this practice would not guarantee a healthier society, okay? So again, she's conceding this point. She's going back and saying, while some education might expand the knowledge base of consumers, will it make a difference? Okay. So she uses her last 2 body paragraphs to, although I conceded this one point, my 2 points are stronger. Okay. She does it again in her conclusion. Okay. While education might be increased, forcing fast food restaurants to print warnings on their packages is costly and probably ineffective. Okay, so I wanted to show this essay because I like how she handled the concession paragraph. Now, something to note, she, in her thesis/forecasting statement, did work the counter-argument into it. You may do this. She does it very effectively. You don't necessarily have to do this, okay? It's up to you, whatever works best for your essay. But in looking at your forecasting statement, if you just want to forecast your 3 points and not mention the counter-argument, as long as it still flows and works, you're free to do that. Okay? All right, so that's all I wanted to say about that essay. I did want to look at this one. And the reason is I want to illustrate something about claims and support. All right? Now, many people, I've done this in class, we've had really good class discussions on this essay in the class before. People look at this question, should the drinking age be lowered to 18? And they think, well, yeah, we should absolutely do that, okay? So they disagree with, I think her name's Joanna. So they disagree with Joanna right away. Yeah, Joanna. All right. But again, what we talked about with rhetoric is you're approaching things with an open mind and you're willing to listen to people's arguments and listen to their support. Right? So oftentimes we've had this discussion in class. People say, yes, we should absolutely lower it to 21. But then we break down her claims, look at her topic sentences and support, and realize, well, I understand her argument. I can't refute any of her claims. Okay. So let's look at them one at a time, and we'll kind of see how that works. All right. So she doesn't have a good transition, but teenagers are too immature to drink. Okay. That's her first claim. That's her topic sentence. All right. And you might start hearing me use the word claim in lieu of topic sentences now, because that's a term that you'll hear a lot in 101. Okay. Teens are just beginning to experience life, especially a life of independence. They are in high school or just out, and their sense of responsibility is just beginning to increase. As such, many teens do not have the ability to drink in a safe and careful manner. Most will get drunk every time they drink. I'm going to note that sentence. These drunken teens are dangerous to themselves and others. There are countless reports of drunk teens falling off balconies, crashing their cars, and dying. Okay. If this is my rough draft, I might use this as a place to add my research. But anyway, before we move on, teenagers are too immature to drink, okay? Before you argue with her, I ask you to do this. Stop a second and ask yourself, as a teenager, did you drink? As a teenager, have you been drinking? And do you have examples of immature teens who are drinking? I'm guessing that almost everybody in the class right now can think of an anecdote that supports the idea that their teenage friends have acted immaturely while drinking. Okay. Now, whether that makes you convinced in her argument or not, that may be one thing. But her claim, even though this paragraph doesn't have a lot of specific evidence, I'm sure as a class, we can come up with lots of evidence that shows that your teenage friends were too immature to drink. I don't drink, I never have drunk, but when I was going to college, I had a lot of friends who helped prove that as well. Okay? So that's what you want to start to think, is like, well, am I willing to accept this? Do I have evidence in my life that helps prove this? Or did she prove this to me? If so, maybe you're a little more willing to listen to her argument. All right. It's a really good blended transition. All right, hopefully by now everybody is got the idea of what that should look like. But in addition to immaturity, that was my last paragraph, the health risks of drinking are too great to let teens drink. Okay. Here's where she's got kind of some more scientific stuff. Dangerous effects on the body, kills brain cells, diseases. Right. Studies also prove that those who drink early on have greater problems with alcohol dependency later in life. All right, we need to kind of talk about research, but this is something that needs to be cited. Otherwise, she's guilty of plagiarism. Okay, addiction, weight gain. Okay, so she lists all sorts of things here. If she were to use more research, she could easily prove this. Okay, so again, ask yourself, is there anybody listening to this who disagrees that there are health risks to letting teens drink? Okay, and we know that it's well documented. All right, so 2 questions you should be asking yourself so far. Do you have examples of stupid teens who've done immature things while drunk? And do you disagree with the idea that drinking has health risks? Okay. The 3rd one is an interesting claim. Not a blended transition like the 2nd one. All right. Finally, American culture as it stands should be the biggest reason to keep the drinking age as is. Okay. Now, I know many of you maybe were born in other countries, have parents who were born in other countries, or have visited other countries. So I'm going to read this paragraph and ask yourself, is this true? Are the things she's saying untrue? Okay. Americans want as much as they can get as soon as they can get it. It is an addictive culture that always demands more. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Is this true? Is what she's saying about Americans true? Now, I want to look at this here. Many argue that European countries have no drinking age, and they have fewer problems with alcoholism and alcohol-related accidents. This is true. Okay, so what she's doing here now is a counter-argument. All right, so she's got a counter-argument embedded in this paragraph. Okay, for me, it has to be a separate paragraph, but she's thinking about how people are going to respond to what she's saying. She's acknowledging it, and now she's about to refute it. However, Europeans are not Americans. Europeans grew up around alcohol, and they do not see it as a rite of passage or as a prize to be coveted. Alcohol is part of their lives just as water or soda is here. More importantly, though, Europeans are not interested in outdoing their friends. They do not even need to keep up with their friends. On the other hand, America has a competitive culture in which one must outdo others. Okay, so I love this paragraph for a few reasons. It has a counter-argument, even though for me I would insist it was a different paragraph. She brings up this claim that American culture is different than other cultures. And again, I'm asking you to question if that's true or not. Right? She accuses us of being comparative, wanting to outdo others, wanting as much as we can get as soon as we can get it. Okay? So ask yourself if that's true, and especially if you have experience with other cultures, if it's true that we're different than other cultures in terms of how we view alcohol. Okay? Now, if you accept this, that Americans are different, that we want what we can get as much as we can get as soon as we can get it. If you accept that there are great health risks to drinking young, and if you accept that your friends are pretty immature when they drink, even if you began this argument saying, well, no, I think it should be lowered to 21, how do you refute this? Okay, she's won this point maybe with you. She's won this point, and if not, she could provide some more evidence. And she's won this point. So if you acknowledge those 3 points, how do you disagree with her? That's kind of how rhetoric should work, right? I'm building a case. If I can get you to believe this, then you see my point. If I can get you to believe this and this and this, okay, as many as I can lay on, then at the end, hopefully you've come over to my side. Even if you haven't, you think, well, I still disagree for whatever reason, but I see her point, right? And hopefully, if people are truly doing what rhetoric asks of them and thinking about it, they go back and they reflect and they say, well, she made 3 good points and I couldn't argue with them. So why do I disagree? Why do I still feel that the drinking age should be lowered? You're going to hear these words again. Am I being objective about this? Or am I taking it from a subjective point of view because I'm 19 and I want to drink? So that's how rhetoric should work. It forces you to kind of look at these claims, evaluate the evidence, and challenge what you're reading against what you believe, and hopefully change your perspective. Okay, I'm not saying that you should believe everything you read and change your perspective based on everything you read, but you should put your thinking up to the test and see whether it holds up. Okay, and maybe you've got 5 or 6 other reasons that you would say we should lower the drinking age. That's fine, but you've gone through that mental process. You've done the thinking. You've grown as a person, hopefully. The process of writing should do the same thing. I was talking about research in the last video I made. Today, I've made 4 or 5, I think, at this point. And I said that your thesis might change as you do the research. And oftentimes I've had students come up to me and say, hey, Bill, I know I gave you that thesis, but I have to change it. I've been doing this research, and the research really doesn't bear up what I'm trying to say. I have to rethink what I'm thinking. At least one time, somebody's come up to me and seemed really upset about that, or thought that I was going to maybe be upset, but I thought that was great. That's the education, right? That's what we want out of these types of things. By now I know you know how to put a topic sentence together, but it's the thinking that goes behind the writing, right? The revising, the editing, the reevaluating where you stand, and learning from that. That's why these assignments are given. Okay, this class was basically the format, but the process is now what becomes important, and what you learn as a result of putting these things together is what's important. Okay, so assume that your reader is open-minded and willing to listen to you, but in the same way, be open-minded yourself and see where the process takes you. Okay, so there's a look at those 2 assignments. We should be working on our own essays at this point. If you haven't sent me a rough draft before we go to the library, either that date is upon us or it's coming up. So put together your argument without the research so that I can kind of give you some feedback and, make sure that you guys are on the right path. We need to talk about documenting sources coming up. There's going to be 1 or 2 more tips for reading, and then we're getting closer and closer to the end of the semester where it's all kind of on you guys. So you won't have to listen to my strained voice much longer. Okay. As always, if you have any questions, shoot them to me. Otherwise, we got plenty to do the next couple weeks. So let's wrap it up, and then I will see you guys at the end of the semester. Virtually, I guess. All right. Take care, guys.